Hey, this is Amy, and this is a tour of every Time Zone Pro and all of the awesome new features and what you can do with them to manage working with your remote team, clients, leads, and maybe your friends. So, the first thing on our tour is the timeline, which is sort of the classic every time zone design that you're familiar with. You've got the time zones, the day chiclets, the color coding for times of day, and of course, this green lollipop you can use to check times in the future and past. So, let's say I need to have a meeting with some folks tomorrow. They are in Vienna and San Francisco. To find a good time will be a little bit tough because that's like a 12-hour run or so. Um, 9 hours apparently. This is why I made a time zone tool because I can't keep this stuff in my head. So if it's 9 a.m. in San Francisco, it'll be noon here and 6 p.m. in Vienna, which is, getting into the unacceptable range, but probably fine because it's an important business meeting. So I have a few options that I can do here. I can just tell them in text, hey, 6 p.m. your time, 12 p.m. my time, 9 a.m. their time. Or I can share a link right there. This will actually include a link to the event. And when someone views it who isn't you, it will be tailored to their time zone, their date, because don't forget about date lines. We don't. We'll take care of that for you. It'll list the time zone that the meeting is in, and it'll show your shining face and contact information so they can't forget what it's for. In the future, we're planning to do some really powerful things with this little pop up experience, like a description, a link to a webinar, a duration. Those are all coming, but right now it's still pretty good, isn't it? You can also download an iCal file. Now, an iCal file will work in all standard calendaring apps from iCal to Outlook, etc. All you have to do is make sure you double check your date and time, and then you have to set a duration because that's how calendars work, and an event title. You can then include a description, which could be what the meeting's about, and then you could include a link to a Zoom webinar or whatever tool that you use, and then download the iCal, and there it goes. I can then share that iCal with people via email, iMessage, Slack, whatever tool you use lets you upload stuff, Basecamp. Any way that you speak with people and you can attach a file, you can send the iCal file that way. And then when they click it, it'll open in their calendar and they'll have the option to confirm it. So you can customize your timeline. You can add and remove time zones, and in the near future, you'll be able to rename them. So if you have people in Pacific, you don't want to think of them being in San Francisco, you can say Los Angeles instead, that sort of thing. So I'm going to remove Singapore because I don't have anybody in Singapore. It just makes it simpler and easier to use. Next up, you can change the date range. If you want to use the timeline to plan a date that's more than a couple days in advance, you can. Ta-da! Very simple. But here's where things get really interesting. The people grid. The people grid shows all your folks, all your users, teammates, and contacts, like your sales leads, contractors, etc., who don't have access to the app in time buckets. Now, note here, this is my time. You can tell by the little green star. Here I am. Here's my husband who lives in Tucson but is currently in this time zone. I mean, not really. It's just an example because it detected the time zone when he logged in. And our employee Cannon is in Greenville, and someone we work with is in Columbus. But we're all in the same time zone, so we're all in the same block. It's not by place; it's by time. So this really gives you a sense of when people are more so than where they are. And it's color coded for the realm of business acceptability, is how I think of it. There's probably a shorter way to say it. But truly, business hours are green, borderlands are yellow. Much later times or super early times are orange. It's like people may accept these times if it's important, but generally it's kind of rude to ask. That's what the orange, and then pink is pretty much a no-go. There's no pink on here at the moment, and then dark purple is the depth of night. We also show the dateline moving as you scroll back and forth. You have a 24-hour period here you can sort of project into the future and past to get a real sense as it moves of when people are relative to your time zone. So you can try to figure out, play the game of what's the most acceptable general time for the team. And for us, it's definitely 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is as close as we can get. We have left Tosh out. She's in New Zealand on the other side of the world, literally. So to fit Tosh in, we have to abandon Alex and Patrick in the depths of night. So it's true that for some wide ranging teams, there may be no single acceptable time, but the people grid will help you figure out what works for the most people at once. You can, of course, limit this from your contacts and team to just your team, which makes things much simpler. The other thing you can do with people, you can view them in a list and you can manage your team members and add contacts. Adding contacts is super simple. To invite people to your account, just share them this link and they will be able to add their own information, and then they'll have a login to every time zone as well. Meetings, though, are where every time zone really starts to shine. You don't have to drag things around to try to pick a meeting time. You can pick your participants, me, Pedro, Alex, and Thomas. Pick your date. Let's say next Tuesday. I think we need to meet for 45 minutes. And we will automatically select a range of times that are the most acceptable for everyone that you've chosen. And then if 9:30 a.m. doesn't work for you or 8 p.m. doesn't work for Alex, you can play with it to try to find what works in increments of 15 minutes. So at 8:45 a.m. my time, the meeting would end at 8 p.m. for Alex, which is a little late. So maybe I could move it to 8 a.m. my time. I'm the boss. I have to suffer. It's totally fine for Pedro. He's in the middle. And then Alex's meeting would end at 7:15, which seems acceptable because he can still go to dinner after that. And I'm going to write test meeting because this is going to really send it. And I'm going to include a pretend webinar link here. And then I'm going to email the invite. And they will receive an email. In Gmail, they can just one click to accept it. In Outlook, it should be one click to accept it. And you can also instead download an iCal and share it with them that way. So that's pretty much where we're at for version 1. We have so many big plans to make things so much easier to work with your remote teams, like a Workday visualizer and groups and a meeting picker where you can offer someone multiple choices and see which one is the most acceptable to everyone when they actually get to, vote on it. Ping. But that's it. And I am super excited to get you in and hear every little bit of feedback, any thoughts, any areas of friction, any things that you love. Just go down here, click the help and support tab, and send us a message, and we'll have your contact information.